I am Jack Williams, and for the past few years, happiness has felt like a distant memory. From the outside, my marriage might have looked perfect, two people who had spent years together, sharing a home, a life, and a history. But inside, behind the closed doors of our house, things had been falling apart long before I had the courage to admit it. At first, I ignored the signs. Relationships change, I told myself. People grow comfortable. Passion fades. But deep down, I knew the truth. Emily and I had drifted so far apart that we had become strangers living under the same roof. Sure, we had good moments, shared laughter, and lived through years of love. But those moments were now just memories. I could no longer recognize the woman I once loved, and I wasn't sure she could recognize me either. Everything changed when I started noticing the distance between us growing even wider. Conversations became routine, nothing more than empty words about work or household chores. The spark that once lit up our nights had burned out. Emily barely looked at me anymore, and when she did, there was no warmth in her eyes. She didn't touch me, didn't laugh at my jokes, didn't ask me how my day was. And I, in return, had stopped trying. It was easier to ignore the truth than to face it. One evening, I came home late. Emily had prepared dinner, but she ate alone. I walked past the dining table without a word and went straight to my office. When I finally glanced back at her, she was sitting on the couch, staring at me with tired eyes, her expression unreadable. The silence between us wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, filled with unspoken words and unexpressed emotions. Something was wrong, and I could feel it deep in my bones. That's when I noticed it. Emily wasn't wearing her wedding ring. She had worn it every single day for 12 years. It had been a part of her, a symbol of our love, our promise to each other. But now her hand was bare. A cold shiver ran through me, and a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I wanted to ask her about it, but the words got stuck in my throat. I just stood there, staring while she looked away, pretending not to notice. After that night, I started paying closer attention. I began to see things I had ignored before, how she no longer smiled when I entered the room, how she didn't wait up for me anymore, how she barely spoke to me unless necessary. The small gestures that once made our marriage feel alive were gone. No affectionate touches, no playful teasing, no lingering glances. It was as if we were simply coexisting, two people living separate lives under the same roof. A week later, I overheard her talking on the phone with an old friend. I wasn't trying to listen, but when I heard the name of another man, I froze. She spoke of nights she hadn't come home, of moments filled with laughter and excitement emotions I hadn't seen in her for a long time. My chest tightened as realization sank in. She was having an affair. But I said nothing. At first, I convinced myself that if I ignored it, it wouldn't be real. Maybe it was just a phase. Maybe she would come back to me. I didn't want to believe that the woman I had loved for so many years had found happiness in the arms of someone else. So I stayed silent, pretending everything was normal, pretending I didn't know. But I couldn't pretend forever. The feeling of betrayal grew heavier every day. It wasn't just that Emily had been unfaithful, it was that I had lost her long before she ever stepped away. I had been blind to it, Or maybe I had refused to see it. Now, the truth was staring me in the face, impossible to ignore. One evening, as she walked into the house, I was waiting for her. She was surprised to see me awake. "What's wrong? Why aren't you asleep?" she asked, her voice distant, cold. I took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you." She hesitated before sitting beside me, her eyes avoiding mine. The silence stretched between us. Then I finally said it. "You know what you've been doing, don't you?" She looked up at me, and for a brief moment, I saw fear in her eyes. But just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. "What do you think I've been doing?" she asked, her voice calm but guarded. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. She knew that I knew. We both did. "I'm not the man you want anymore, am I?" I finally said. The words felt heavy, but they were true. She remained silent. Her expression didn't change, but her hands clenched into fists. I saw the tears welling in her eyes, not out of regret, but because she had been caught between two worlds, one that she had built with me and one that she had created without me. "I don't want to keep doing this," she whispered. "This marriage, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore, Jack. I can't keep pretending." Her words stung, but deep down, I had already known them to be true. "So, you want a divorce?" I asked, not with anger, but with acceptance. She hesitated, then nodded. "I think it's the right thing to do." I looked at her, searching for something, anything that would make me fight for us. But there was nothing left. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "If that's what you want, then we'll get a divorce." As those words left my mouth, a strange feeling washed over me, relief. A part of me had just put down a heavy burden, but another part of me felt hollow, lost in the reality of what was happening. Emily stood up, turning her back to me as she walked toward the door. Then she stopped and looked at me one last time. Her eyes held no hatred, no pain, just exhaustion, like she had fought a battle for too long and was finally letting go. "I'll always remember the good times," she said softly, but the words felt empty. And then she was gone. I sat alone in the silence, looking around at the house we had once built together. The pictures, the furniture, the little things that had once meant everything, they were now just objects, reminders of a love that had faded away. At first, the emptiness felt overwhelming, but then a part of me sighed in relief, as if I had finally been freed. And that was the moment I knew I was ready to start over. We value your opinion in comment section. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.